So, who else is a bit tired or like didn't sleep much this night? Okay, good, because I fell asleep at like 5, so I'm working with my last brain cells here. But this will be an experiment of how well I have practiced my speech. I will be talking about my personal journey with stuttering and mental health by showing different artworks I have made over the years. Because for me it's actually a lot easier to express myself in art than to speak about it. So I will show art to help me with that. And in my journey I will share what stuttering has taught me over the years and how it still helps me now. Let's see if it works. So, about 16 years ago, just for context, I'm 26 now and I'm 10 years old there, although I look like 7. But about 16 years ago, I was sitting in an audience just like I was before. And I was very excited because I was about to go on stage and participate in a reading competition. In the Netherlands, we have these reading competitions at school where children like read a book, and the child that reads it in the most engaging way wins and goes to the next round. And I had already won in my class, and then my school, and then the city. And this was the moment where I was competing in the province. And I got up on stage. I was very excited because I really enjoyed being on stage. And I started introducing myself and showing my book. And pretty soon I started feeling a stutter coming. And this is usually where, if you hear a story like this, it turns out to be like a traumatic memory. But actually, this stutter just happened, and it came out very easily, very effortlessly, and I wasn't worrying about it. And yeah, I just continued speaking, and I actually have a video of this. I hope the sound will work.
De opa's en oma's van Shaki en Oompa Loompas, dat zijn kleine mannetjes, die helpen meneer Wonka bij zijn werk. Meneer Wonka heeft net een pil uitgevonden die het Wonka-fiet, en elke pil maak je 20 jaar jonger. Die gaan een paar mensen nemen en daar ga ik nu een stukje over voorlezen.
Did you see the very small stutters? Yeah, okay. So the stutters just happened, and I didn't worry about it. I wasn't fighting my stutter at all because I had no reason to yet. I actually never went to speech therapy as a kid, and nobody really mentioned it, although sometimes people were maybe laughing about it, but I was very confident at that time. So yeah, I had no like difficult experiences around it yet, so I had no reason to fight my stutter yet. So I have very specific memories of stuttering very effortlessly and easily, and this is very important for later in my life. And I remember a year later I was laying in bed in the summer vacation, and I was thinking about that I was going to go to high school the year after. We go to high school at 12. And I was laying in bed and I was worried that I was going to get bullied in high school for being short. Let's see. That's me on the side. So I was always the shortest, and I was only worried about being bullied for being short. I couldn't think of anything else I was going to get bullied for. But unfortunately, I would soon find out, because unfortunately those negative experiences did come in high school. About a year into high school, I had another moment where I had to be on stage and I had to give a presentation. And it was about the Mennonites, some religious group, very boring. I don't know why we had to do that at 13, but and I remember standing there and doing I remember this very vividly, and being very surprised with the amount I was stuttering. And I remember two boys like laughing really loud while I was talking and mocking my stutter. And I just continued while they were doing it, and the teacher didn't say anything. And after I was finished, I remember sitting down, and they were still behind me. And I remember them saying something to me, and I probably said something back. And the teacher didn't say anything, and I even received a lower grade because I was stuttering, and the teacher was also grading the fluency of the presentation. So all of those things made me feel that I was doing something wrong, and I didn't want to experience something like that again. So at 13, I decided that I wanted to fix my stutter myself. But of course, as a 13-year-old, wait, let me think. Every morning I remember thinking, if I just work hard enough, I will be able to speak fluently, because if I'm by myself, I can speak fluently. Everyone else can speak fluently. If I just try hard enough, like really put a lot of willpower into it or something, then I will be fluent. And I was trying that every day. And yeah, I was working on being fluent, but at 13, of course, it just meant that I was hiding it. And yeah, you can imagine the tricks. We were all doing them, I think. And my approach to hiding was like misbehaving, and being the clown. So I misbehaved myself out of every speaking situation. And as soon I was spending all my time avoiding, and I seemed fluent, but I was just anxious all the time. And yeah, it was a very lonely time for me. And then I saw an open call for the school theater, and I still really enjoyed the idea of being on stage, so I just signed up for the audition. And I remember just crying during the audition because I was stuttering, and that whole thing came up again. And one of the jury members said, "Oh, but if you just do some breathing exercises, then it will be fine." And even at 14 years old, I was like, yeah, no. But the other guy, the other jury member, I felt like I trusted him and I wanted to talk to someone about it, so I reached out to him because I didn't end up making it to the next round. And I asked him for feedback. And we started talking about stuttering, and he realized that I needed help. So he asked if I wanted to go to a counselor at school, which was also a teacher. And I went there. This was like maybe 3 years into hiding my stutter. I went there, and I think he just mentioned the word stuttering, and I was crying for an hour. And I remember he cancelled his appointments for the thing after because he wanted to be there for me. So that's a very precious thing for me. And we started finally talking about stuttering, and I was being open about it with him. And we started thinking of, okay, I realized I had a problem, and I started thinking of how do I approach this problem. And we started looking at therapies. But when I was looking at therapies, I saw something confusing, because all the therapies, at least in the Netherlands, that I was looking for, they all talked about stuttering being the problem and fixing stuttering. But I had those very vivid memories of just stuttering effortlessly, and something happened along the way that made my stutter a problem, and that's what I wanted help for, but not necessarily the stutter itself. But yeah, I didn't know how to like really put that into words yet. But I still didn't go to therapy because they were also focused on fixing stuttering, and I knew that stuttering wasn't the problem. But at least when I was with that counselor, I could finally talk about it and be open about stuttering to them, and I'm very grateful for those teachers for helping me. I always think of them like when I see teachers, and they were very important in my life, and yeah, it's kind of an inspiration for me, like how much of an impact you can have on other people, because they had such a big impact on me. And he made me think about stuttering more, and as I said, I was exploring a lot of feelings about it, but I didn't know what was going on. So for the first time I made art about it to process my feelings, and I will show a video of that. I made this animation video about stuttering and covert stuttering when I was about 16 or 17. It's half in English and half in Dutch, and it has subtitles. And at the end of the video I came to a realization. I hope the internet will work. Yes, subtitles.
I have a stutter, but most people don't know that. When I was a kid, I used to stutter when I was happy or excited, and I barely noticed it. But slowly I realized that there was something wrong with my speech, mainly because other people started noticing it, my classmates. They laughed at me and mocked me. I was being bullied. But I didn't tell anyone. Why would I? People would always tell me to speak calmly and think about what I was going to say before I said it. So why would I deserve help for something that was my fault? From then on, I wanted to cure my stutter myself. By not using certain hard letters and words, I was able to hide my stutter and speak fluently. And I came up with more tricks. I never ordered what I really wanted, I just ordered what I could say fluently. Or I pretended to not know the answer to a question. I even did my homework a certain way so that I was able to read it fluently at school. And I stopped drinking water at school so that I wouldn't have to ask the teacher if I could go to the toilet. Every decision evolved around hiding my stutter. I was constantly thinking about it, and it was exhausting. Even my hobbies, presenting and acting, became my biggest nightmares. Then I finally got the courage to ask for help. But when I did that, people thought I didn't need help. Which is understandable. I mean, to them, I was a fluent speaker. But the stutters were still there, only in the words I never said. So that's why everyone thought I was perfectly fine. And I then tried to convince myself I was. And I also convinced myself that asking for help was attention seeking for a problem that didn't exist or that I had created. That it was all my fault. But I was still so scared of speaking, even more than before I started hiding it. So what did I achieve? I was hardly stuttering anymore, which was my goal, but I was still terrified to stutter. I didn't understand myself anymore, and I hated the stuttering and myself. It was weird, but I kind of hoped that my stutter would get worse, so I didn't even have the chance to hide it anymore. Ik wil weer stotteren. Ik wil dat zelfhaat, schaamte en me niet kunnen uiten weer ingeruild worden voor stotteren. Liever af en toe uitgelachen worden dan me nooit kunnen uiten, nooit kunnen zeggen wat ik wil. Ik wil mezelf weer worden.
So, yeah, I thought it was interesting because I watched this video for this keynote again, and this was from when I was 16, 17, and I was like, interesting that I already had this realization at that point that I wanted my stutter back. I kind of forgot about that, and yeah, at this moment I learned from stuttering that suppression or control of what is difficult is not the answer. Of course, I didn't know it to put it in those kind of words yet, but I knew it in my heart, kind of. And so I wanted my stutter back, and with the help of my teacher and the counselor, I started taking small steps to show my stutter again. And I told my class about it, and yeah, they were very small steps, but it was helpful. But one thing was going to be even more helpful in getting myself to show my stutter again. The stuttering community. Yeah. So as I was looking online for therapy with the counselor, I also came across the stuttering community on Facebook, that Facebook group, when I was 15. So if you look back and you Google my name, look my name in those Facebook groups, then you see some weird old post. But I found that one, and I found Stutter Social, which was an online calling thing. Who has heard of Stutter Social? Yes. So I joined, yeah, and I know some people from there. I joined Stutter Social, and it took a few years before I was actually going to meet people who stutter. And that was because I saw a link from Sibren. I don't know where Sibren is. I saw a link on Facebook about a youth exchange in Italy for people who stutter, and about being on stage. So I was like, wow, okay, I have to sign up for this. But I was a bit hesitant because it was in Italy and I'd never been on a plane before, and I also like, what is this? But I signed up and I just expected to not be chosen. But I was chosen. I was the only girl that signed up from the Netherlands. So yeah, and then I went to Italy when I was 19 to my first youth exchange, and there are some people here that were there. And I think this was still, if I look back at it, it's still the best week of my life. Like finding or being a week with people that have the thing that has always made you different, and just feeling that like melt away, and feeling all my worries melt away. I could finally think of who I was like outside of stuttering and who I wanted to be outside of the exchange. And it was very inspiring to just see people having a stutter and they didn't try to fix it. So I was inspired by them to actively stop. Oh, and I got that also confirmed to me that stuttering itself wasn't the problem, because if I was in a room with everyone who stuttered, it wasn't a problem at all. And it made me want to embrace my stutter even further. And I was wrestling with, because I was opening up more and showing my stutter more, but I was wrestling with why I didn't stutter the same anymore as at the reading competition, those very vivid memories that I had of stuttering effortlessly. So yeah, I was exploring that, and I made another video about this back then. Another short animation.
Stuttering.
This was when I was 19.
Stuttering. All these years I've been hating it, loving it, trying to solve it, avoid it, hide it, being ashamed of it, apologizing for it, trying to educate people about it, trying to explain why I don't always stutter, that I'm not stupid, that it's not easily cured, that it doesn't have to be cured, trying to raise awareness. I was raising awareness online while still being ashamed of my stutter in real life. I was avoiding speaking a lot of the time, and I still do. And all I want is to just accept my stutter, educate others about it, and help other people who stutter accept their stutter as well. And I now realize all this can be done in such a simple way. Just stutter. No apologizing, no tricks, no shifting eye contact, no shame, just stutter. By just stuttering, you can achieve so many things. You teach others to listen and have patience. You raise awareness for stuttering. You can let someone who is still hiding their stutter know that it's okay to stutter. But most importantly, you can teach yourself that it's okay to stutter. So maybe it's easier said than done. Well, not in our case, but just stutter.
So this was the start of my project, Just Stutter. And at the time of making this video, I was still hiding, or like I was still avoiding most speaking situations and hiding my stutter a lot of the time. And let me think. I was trying to get myself. I was trying to push myself even more to overcome my fears and be in more speaking situations. But I always thought it was a bit embarrassing that my fears were about like ordering something or asking something or giving someone a compliment. So one day when I did that, I gave someone a compliment. And I had a reaction that I didn't like. I decided that I wanted to make a drawing about it, just to encourage myself. Like, okay, this was not a very nice situation, but at least I did it, and I started doing this a lot. At this time, I had just started art school, so I was making a lot of art, and I called these comics little victories, and soon, so I was sharing these on Instagram, and soon people started following and sharing their own stories, and so soon I was making little victories for other people, which was really enjoyable. And I worked on this project for 5 years until last year. And for me, that's a very long time because I have ADHD and I jump from every project to the next, like in 2 weeks. So the fact that I did this for 5 years means that I really enjoyed it. And it was super helpful for me in embracing my identity as a person who stutters. And it helped me to get back on stage again. Also, I'm here, so and it's probably because of that project. It helped me to connect with people and learn how to give workshops, and I do live drawing with kids at Camp Dream Speak Live. So yeah, this project was just super helpful for me. But what I have learned the most from this project and making art about my stutter is the value of being kind to myself unconditionally, and how to practice that through art. And that's a lesson I really learned from stuttering, because I would often beat myself up, like, why am I fluent in this situation and stuttering in the next? But like, logically it just doesn't make sense to beat myself up over it, because it just makes me feel worse. So if you just think about it, it just makes more sense to be kind to myself, like however my stutter is behaving. And thanks to this project, I felt like I really accepted my identity as a person who stutters. But still, I was wrestling with the question, why is my stutter still so struggled and not like the reading competition anymore? And let's see. Here is an example of how I was stuttering at that time and what I mean. It's from an interview.
Lily, what do you want the world to know about you?
That you just have to wait a little longer for the things I'm trying to say.
So at this time, I'm not sure if you can see the difference, but I was, instead of like just stuttering, I was more like I was going back a lot, and I didn't understand why I was doing that. And in hindsight, and I saw the animation that I just showed before, in hindsight I had already known about this for years, because there's a clip at the end of the animation that explains that.
Ik wil weer stotteren. Ik wil dat zelfhaat, schaamte en me niet kunnen uiten weer ingeruild worden voor stotteren. Liever af en toe uitgelachen worden dan me nooit kunnen uiten, nooit kunnen zeggen wat ik wil. Ik wil mezelf weer worden. En dat blijkt moeilijker dan gedacht. Ik kan niet meer zonder de verbergtrucjes. Als de stotter te dichtbij komt, stop ik automatisch met praten. Ik blokkeer. Ik mag van mezelf hoe dan ook niet stotteren. En nu pas besef ik me ook dat ik het stotteren niet per se voor andere mensen verberg, maar voor mezelf.
So I have been like thinking about this for years already, but now it finally made sense. So I wanted to figure out, how do I actually let go of this resistance that I'm feeling? How do I actually just stutter? And I was going to learn that from something else, because, and now we have to go back a little bit, alongside stuttering there was another thing, a problem developing, or there was another struggle developing, a struggle that turned out to be almost a threat to my life, OCD. I wanted to include an official definition of OCD, but I didn't find it very helpful, so I just will explain what my experience was. From a young age, I would often feel something was wrong, and then I had to do some action to fix that feeling. And in the beginning it was like symmetry, or doing things 3 times. A lot of different things just to get rid of that uncomfortable feeling. And you might know that with OCD there's often a core fear underlying it. So some people are afraid of getting sick and dying, and some people are afraid of panic attacks. But my core fear was a bit different. It was being depressed. I was really afraid of becoming depressed for the rest of my life. And I think I had this feeling because it was always a little bit in me, and I would feel it come up, and I was really scared of that feeling. And how I tried to control that, it turned into, when I was in puberty, it turned into writing my thoughts down. So my main compulsion, or like habit to fix my feelings, was writing my thoughts down. And I did this because I really disliked the feeling of forgetting something. And I wanted to hold on to happy thoughts. So I was repeating happy thoughts in my head and happy feelings. And things I wanted to remember, I had to write down. And at its worst, I was writing something down every 40 seconds. So pretty much every time I was thinking something, I had to write it down, because I couldn't otherwise focus on the thing I was actually doing. And this is what that looked like. So this is during my exam, when I was 18, like my school exam, we received like a notepad where you could like write some things down before you answered your question. And this was just 2 hours of, during my exam, I had to, every time I was trying to focus on my exam, but if I had a thought, I had to write it down before continuing, otherwise I couldn't focus on the question. So this is just 2 hours of OCD at that time, and it's not even the whole picture. So with these compulsions, I was trying to suppress depression and like control my feelings and keep everything down. And sometimes something would trigger me, and I would feel the feeling coming up, and I would do fixing again to get that feeling of depression down again. And I even became afraid of being too happy, because if I was too happy, then the fear would become really big that I was going to be depressed and it would ruin everything. So I even purposely sabotaged my life to keep that fear under control. And for years it always felt like I was holding on to a cliff, like above a deep, endless pit, and I was always trying to hold on or trying to crawl out of it. And I lived like this for 10 years, from 11 to 21. But I knew this wasn't the way to live. And that's because at some point I learned, because of stuttering, that suppression or control of what is difficult is not the answer. So I had like the feeling in my heart that, okay, this isn't the way to go about this. And I tried to like get out of it myself, but yeah, it was too difficult because it was too scary. And and then in 2021, when I was 21, my mom got sick. It feels weird to mention it so briefly because she deserves more time. But she I'll just try to go through this part. She was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And she passed away a year later. And I'm thinking of her right now because, sorry, she would be very proud and watching the live stream if she was still here. I would love to like give her more time, but I also want to. Yeah, she would probably be uncomfortable with that. So, and for a couple of months. So this was actually when she passed away. A week later, I started with my graduation year of art school. Yay. Um, so I went to school immediately after she passed away, and I felt fine, which is very suspicious. Um, so, and then, but yes, after a couple of months, I started to feel the depression come up again. And this time, because of what I learned from stuttering and in the combination of feeling like I had nothing to lose, because I lost my mom and I was like, I don't care about anything anymore, I decided to just approach it differently and see what would happen if I let myself slide into, like if I let myself go from hanging onto the cliff and let myself slide down, because I was just tired of OCD and trying to fix my feelings. I thought, what if I just let myself slide into the pit? Ooh, I was in for a wild ride. I think I allowed the feelings to come up, so I stopped doing the compulsions, is basically what I'm saying. I stopped trying to control my feelings, and the depression came up. And I allowed it for a couple of days, but then I was just like, oh no, I don't like this. And then I thought, wait, I can fix this, I'm gonna do it differently, I can fix this, but in a healthy way. So I was like looking online on how to build mental health skills. I was also on the waiting list for therapy, but it was super long in the Netherlands, so that's why I was trying it myself. And I came across this OCD guy that recovered from OCD, and he was making videos about it and helping people with it. And I used all his tips, and I thought, he was talking about mindfulness and meditation, and I thought, if I just am mindful all day, and if I meditate for like an hour or something, then my feelings, like difficult feelings, will go away, and I won't have any thoughts and feelings. Spoiler alert, I was just doing OCD again. It was OCD in a different outfit. And yeah, I was trying to be mindful, to control my feelings 24/7, and at some point, and I was in panic a lot because I was feeling the depression, everything was happening at the same time. And when you try to be mindful, I don't know, what happened to me was when I was trying to be mindful all the time, in an obsessive way, something started like happening with my head. So it's difficult to explain, but something happened with my vision, and I lost the ability to read at some point, because I was so, I just started seeing shapes instead of words, because I was constantly trying to do something and push my thoughts away, and I couldn't follow conversations anymore. It was just sound instead of meaning. So you can imagine I was freaking out. I was in a constant panic attack for a few months, and like everything, that my whole body was just in panic mode the whole time. And then I had my graduation moment at the same time. So this I was completely losing my mind in this picture. I seem fine, but this is probably, I think, the worst day of my life. This was June 25, 2022. I had the graduation exhibition of my art school, and I remember getting there and setting it up, and my vision was like dark around the corners. I was like barely, and sound was muffled, and I had constant intrusive thoughts as well, and I was trying to fix that, and everything just happened at the same time. I was also afraid of my own breathing. It was just an endless anxiety. I pretended I was fine, of course. I don't know if that was even possible, but at some point it kind of exploded, and I walked out of this building. It was in the middle of a field, and I just walked into the field, and I just wanted it to stop. And I was really angry at myself, because I thought I was working so hard on my mental fitness skills. I am being mindful all the time. I'm doing meditation. Like, why is it not going away? But then I remembered from stuttering the value of being kind to myself unconditionally, and I thought, okay, I don't know what's going on, I don't understand this, but at least I can make it a little bit easier for myself if I just am kind to myself in this. And that evening, I was still, even though I was kind to myself, I was still really desperate. I didn't know what to do anymore, so I reached out to that OCD guy that I talked about before, and I asked him a question like, what am I doing wrong? Please help me. It was the worst I ever felt, and I felt really hopeless. And this was his answer. You can ask me tomorrow. There's nothing to fix, so you don't need to spend more time on it right now. I also have a client call momentarily, and then I have to eat a pizza. So it seems very like, okay, but this was actually the message that turned it around for me, really. So, what do you think in this message made something click for me?
You asked me.
Okay. Yes, I saw that sentence, there's nothing to fix, and I just thought, oh, maybe I don't have to do so much work. Even though I was still feeling terrible, it was kind of relieving that, because I was telling him all these things that were happening to me, and everyone else would have said like, okay, you have to be like in a mental hospital, or like something is wrong. And he was like, you can ask me, it's okay. So I was like, oh, so this is fine, I guess, okay. But I still didn't know what I was doing wrong, so I did ask him the next day, what am I doing wrong? Like, why is this not, why is my work not helping? And he said, what was wrong was the spending time on this stuff. You might have heard me mention before that people will often send long emails explaining lots of details about experiences they don't like, and then I respond explaining that none of that actually matters. Instead of giving more time and energy to judging experiences as problems, what do they want to grow and build? What if the experience you had at the art exhibit is just an interesting human experience to have? Well, I was not ready to see it as an interesting human experience yet, but for some reason this started the change, and the nothing to fix really stuck in my mind. And I thought, finally I actually had myself slide into the endless pit, and it felt really wrong to do it, but I had no other option, and so I had myself slide into the seemingly endless pit, but it wasn't endless. I finally landed at the bottom, and there I could finally rest. Even though I was still feeling really bad, I could finally rest. I didn't have to do anything anymore, I didn't have to fix anymore. I wasn't constantly trying to be mindful and doing healthy things to fix my thoughts and feelings. And I could look around and actually experience what was going on and what I was feeling. And I could experience what was happening to me with acceptance. I could actually feel my feelings and learn to have them and like lift them like a heavy weight. And I learned that I could actually handle them. And I thought, what if this is just my brain and I don't have to fix it? How can I make the best of it? I can be kind to myself in whatever experience I have. And in that bottom, I planted some flowers and I helped them grow. And suddenly the place didn't look so scary anymore. And without realizing, I was out of the pit. And because I stopped fearing it, it stopped existing. So this is how I recovered from OCD. Okay, I wouldn't recommend it, but I was on the waiting list and everything went wrong and it just happened like this, but it wasn't the safe way of going about it. But I did learn a lot of things in that journey, and I think stuttering really helped me get to this point, because of stuttering I knew that suppression wasn't the answer, and I knew how to be kind to myself in those really difficult moments. And now, thanks to this whole mental breakdown, I understood how I could actually let go of suppression. So, finally I had room to think about stuttering again, so my next question was, how do I, or can I apply this to stuttering? And I was thinking like I was going to invent some therapy, or I don't know, but it already existed. It already existed this whole time, and I came across this video 2 years ago, and this is Vivian Sisskin and arts therapy, avoidance reduction therapy for stuttering, and it really clicked with me, and it's basically it was about how to let go of the suppression of stuttering. And I emailed Vivian and I started therapy 2 months later. I won't go into details because I'm not a therapist, but there will be an arts workshop later today if you want to know more. But my biggest realization was that even though I had accepted my identity as a person who stutters and I was showing stuttering, I was and am sometimes still resisting in the way that I'm stuttering. I was still subconsciously, because of all that history of hiding my stutter, still trying to control how the stutter was going to come out. I think, for example, I would add a sound to make the stutter come out fluently, but then the sound would just be the stutter. And I wouldn't make eye contact, or I would make it very small, like keep it small or not make it weird. And I realized that that is what created the struggle, and that was the difference between, created the difference between how I was speaking later and how I was speaking at the reading competition. And a lot of things I saw as part of my stutter were actually me trying to control the moment of stuttering. So all the secondary behaviors I was doing were to like get out of the stutter as fast as possible, or to avoid uncomfortable feelings. And that's all very understandable, but it means that I was constantly practicing resistance. And that's what created the struggle. The secondary behaviors are not my stutter, they're me fighting the stutter. So if my goal is to embrace my stutter, it wouldn't make sense for me to embrace my secondary behaviors as well. So the past year I have been working on reducing the secondary behaviors, or the resistance behaviors. And how do we do that? So all the mental health lessons I learned before became relevant again in stuttering. And most of these phrases are from Vivian Sisskin. And all the things I learned in the therapy fitted perfectly with what I already learned from my OCD journey, my mental health journey, and I will highlight the ones that resonated with me the most. If trying harder doesn't work, try softer or do less. And Vivian says it's not your job to control the way the stutter moves through your body. And I made a comic about that. I'm a person who stutters and I'm tired of pressuring myself to speak fluently. So I'm taking a fluency vacation forever. And I really instead of trying to control, be curious about the experience. I also had this when I came here. I thought, okay, I only slept 2 hours or something. I'm just going to be curious how this is going to go. And it really helps. And Vivian says, see where the stutter takes you. And make mistakes. And Vivian calls that, for example, stutter dangerously, which I really like. So I made, perhaps instead of trying to control, be curious and see where the stutter takes you. I have to be a bit quick because I'm running out of time. But and of course, there's nothing to fix. So even though I am working on reducing the secondary behaviors, if they still happen, like I will be kind to myself unconditionally. And I practice non-judgment around it still. And that's very important. And how I feel today. So, I'm much more comfortable with the discomfort of stuttering. And there are moments where I stutter again, like I did as a child. I enjoy more being on stage again, and I feel more comfortable, and I feel like I'm getting my stutter back. And even though OCD is behind me, I still have to maintain the mental health skills to stay mentally healthy. Because if I start controlling things again, it is really easy for me for that to snowball into more OCD. And that's where stuttering is a great teacher for me every day. Because every day, stuttering reminds me of the importance of allowing loss of control. Because when I allow loss of control in my stutter, I can speak way more spontaneously, and I don't have to brace myself for stuttering, and I feel way more comfortable. And also in that, I have the opportunity to practice sitting in uncomfortable feelings thanks to my stutter, and practicing self-kindness. And I think stuttering is an invitation to be myself, because I'm forced to show this imperfect thing about myself. So I feel like I don't have to put up a certain image of myself, because yeah, it kind of invites me to just let go. Isn't this until 15? Or?
We are hoping it is final time, but if you will have some more questions.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it might take me 5 minutes longer.
Okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So stuttering taught me lessons that helped me let go of OCD and Stuttering taught me lessons that helped me recover from OCD and depression, because I learned to let go of suppressing the feelings, and because I now allow the feelings of depression, like I still get them sometimes, but they just flow through me instead of I don't get anxious about it anymore. They just happen, and they go away pretty quickly because I genuinely know I can handle them. And stuttering helped me recover from OCD, and now stuttering helps me to maintain my healthy habits and also my my mental health. So for the final thing, we worked on this in my workshop yesterday, because I've now also been exploring this in my art, because I'm very perfectionistic in my art, and also I'm trying to control a lot of things in my art, or I was at least, because I was afraid of it being ugly or it not turning out the way I wanted. But this can all be applied to creativity as well, and probably in many other things. Like if I feel a lot of perfectionism, for what helps me the most is be curious what's going to happen and make mistakes and practice non-judgment. It all really helps me in my creative journey. So now these days I am working on I want to share about stuttering, because the Just Stutter project kind of feels over, but I want to turn it into a project about mental health in general and combine art and stuttering. So I'm working on that very recently now. So I'm hoping that I can do this and hopefully support myself, and then finally move out, because I still live with my dad. But the most important thing, of course I want to make this work, but the most important thing I really want to be free in how I express myself, not just in stuttering, but also in art. That feels very enjoyable. So I talked a lot, and it actually went better than I thought with my last brain cells. But I made a little summary of what I really want you to take away. Yeah, so I will read that. This is what if you fell asleep, this is what I want you to take away. It's fine. So, if trying harder doesn't work, try softer. Be gentle with yourself, be lazy, do less. Instead of trying to control, be curious, sit in the experience. There's nothing to fix, just life to experience. Trust yourself to handle wrong experiences, make mistakes, talk wrong, stutter dangerously, feel depressed, dance with depression, have intrusive thoughts, add some rainbow sprinkles to them, make ugly art, share it proudly, and be kind to yourself unconditionally while exploring all of this. And I made some ugly art to go with that. And yeah, that was it actually. Sorry.